How does our ego survive spiritual transformation? Now, there's a lot of ways that it does survive it. One way is when we drop our social role for a spiritual role. Now, what I mean by that is that, we have a particular role in society to begin with. So before we come across spirituality. So, we might be a certain person that our family perceives that we should be, and society think that we should act this way. And then when we come across a spiritual path, then usually spirituality throws our life upside down, and then we realize what the nature of reality is, and we want to live in accord with that, as opposed to how we used to live, which was materialistically driven and driven by the external world, which is, how social roles and, roles in general are geared. But a problem happens when we drop our social role for a spiritual role. Now, the problem with dropping your social role for a spiritual role is this is one way that the ego survives spiritual transformation. It's that your ego slips under the door. You've put this nice door up, you've blocked out the world, and I'm going to follow the path of peace now, and I'm going to dedicate my life to meditation and knowledge. And then your ego still slipped under the door. Now, what happens is that once you drop that social role, you begin to embody this spiritual role, this spiritual persona that you try to exhibit to others. This is just the ego again at play. You've stepped away from what it actually means to be spiritual, which is to be completely ordinary in the sense that Lin Chi said in Zen, and you've taken on this very glamorous spiritual persona that you want to showcase to others. This is a big problem, and this is a problem that I see a lot around the world. And this comes from the tendency to wear our heart on our sleeve. A lot of people wear their heart on their sleeve. They want to showcase who they are. They're so proud of who they believe they are, and so forth and so on. We see this just in ordinary life, but we see this within spirituality as well, where we see people, they'll come across spirituality, next minute they're getting tattoos, having dreadlocks, they're dressing differently. And as I've mentioned in my video Spiritual Materialism, there's actually nothing wrong with tattoos and dressing a certain way in and of themselves. But when we're doing it to showcase a certain characteristic we believe we have embodied, or a certain persona we have embodied, then this is still the ego at play. This is still the ego driving your life. So we have to be very conscious of that, because if the ego survives our spiritual transformation, then we have not really undergone any spiritual transformation at all. All that we have done is we've dropped one role for another. So we dropped one role, which was socially driven, materialistically driven, for a spiritual role, which we could say is based on, obviously more pure principles and a more introspective life. But we still have the ego that is driving us. We're still trying to showcase our life to others. And this is a massive problem in spirituality, because what I see a lot around the world, I lecture on that around the world. I've done for many years, and I've traveled a lot. And I often see people who will embody this certain persona, and they dress themselves up a certain way, and then they believe they are spiritual because of the way they appear to others or the way they speak to others. And this is a big problem. This is a big problem. The essence, especially of Eastern spirituality, most of you who are watching now are watching me because you are interested in Eastern spirituality. And so the essence of Eastern spirituality is to be ordinary. It's not to add anything to your life. It's not to look a certain way. It's not to try and be better than other people. It's to be more calm, more quiet, more silent, and just ordinarily who you are without trying to be somebody else. So again, as I mentioned through all of my videos, you are not at odds with your own humanity. Now, a lot of people who take on this spiritual role are at odds with their own humanity because they're not okay with who they are just as a person, and so they want to make it look better. But the difference is when you take on spirituality as it truly is, when you begin to meditate and study and absorb knowledge and reach high states of consciousness, is that You become a better person just by following that process without even trying to do so. Do you know what I mean? So this is the process. This is the process. So as I mentioned earlier, Lin Chi, the great Zen master, he just said, be ordinary, be completely ordinary. He said, move your bowels, eat your food, sleep, just be simple, live a simple life. And actually from that place, that's where you're more connected to the source. That's where you're more connected to your true self, as opposed to dressing yourself up, trying to wax lyrical to sound good to other people, trying to be more wise than other people. Though there's nothing wrong with, being in conversation and naturally speaking like that. But when you're putting a lot of effort into make yourself be like that, that's where problems occur. And especially with the appearance, a lot of people focus a lot on appearance, which is actually counterintuitive when we talk about spirituality, because spirituality is not about focusing on how we appear to others. It's about who we truly are and our relationship to others and the entire universe. So be mindful that when you are going through a spiritual transformation of some sort, that the ego may still try to slip under the door and come along for the ride. And the ego will be coming along for the ride, and you'll be able to witness it when you are trying to embody a new role, a new persona, so to speak, that you are excited about being and that you're excited about exhibiting to others. This is the ego again. This is the ego. So, life is tricky. The mind is tricky. This is the thing. The mind is very tricky. And we all fall for this, right? We all fall for this. We all come across spirituality and we're all out, yeah. You're all buying new things to showcase your spirituality. And that's kind of cute. I can sympathize with that. But we need to be mindful that we can't just drop one role for another role. We need to dissolve all roles so that you come back to your true nature, where there is no role from the zero perspective. That's the process that we all need to go through. Now, in the end, the way that the ego survives this spiritual transformation is you're still ultimately coming from a place that is still materialistically driven and driven by external expectations of who you should be. This is the big problem. It's something that we all need to realize, that we're living up to an image of who we think we should be and how we should appear to others. And so we need to go through that complete transformation, which means the complete dissolution of the ego. Not that the ego won't exist, but what I'm saying by that is loosening the grip on it, loosening the grip on that ego, which helps you then to be comfortable with your persona, because you are residing more so back in the true self, in the Atman, which has kind of, in a sense, separated itself or disentangled itself from being involved or too involved within that persona system. And that's how we can actually go through a real and authentic spiritual transformation. It's not something we need to dress up. We don't have to drop one role for another. We just have to realize who we truly are. Be simple, live an ordinary life, and continue to come from that place to abide in the self, which then has no identity with the persona. The true self has disidentified with the persona system, which then allows you to abide in the self without being involved in all of this mental turbulence that we have going on in our life. So in the end, you don't need to drop a social role for a spiritual role. All you need to do is go through the real spiritual process, the real spiritual transformation, which is the dissolution of the ego, the detachment from the ego, that clinging to ourselves or to who we think we are, and coming back into resonance with our true nature, our Atman, which can actually witness this persona system without being caught in it. This is the true spiritual transformation. It doesn't mean, you aren't a person anymore. It means you are not clinging to who you are. It means you have become comfortable with who you truly are. You're not at odds with yourself. You understand the difference between who you truly are and who you are in this world, which then allows you to go through the real and authentic transformation that we all need to experience, which doesn't require us to take on a spiritual role, but requires us to come back to our ordinary, simple nature. Shanti, shanti, shanti.